Brr. Is it getting cold in here? I'm starting to nip out. Okay, so it's getting cold because we are getting ready to cover A Glorious Death. A Glorious Death is one of the supplements that was released in the early days of Shadow of the Demon Lord. And it is a setting book along with a rule book, mostly a setting book because it details an area of the campaign world that doesn't see a whole lot of action, and it's because it's in a really inhospitable place. So, but having said that, this is a really awesome supplement. I've wanted to use this a lot more than I have, and I actually want to run a full campaign in this setting, but I just haven't gotten around to it. It will happen. Oh, yes, it will happen, but just not today. So, anyway, sit back and relax because we're going to take a trip to the Arctic and we are going to cover A Glorious Death. So, this is where the fancy intro to my video should be, but I don't have one because I'm lazy. So, Glorious Death is written, designed by, and directed, the art by Robert J. Schwab. Oh my gosh, that's a shocker. Editing is by Kim Mohan. Proofreading, layout, and graphic design, Kara Hamilton. The cover art, Mirko Paganesi. That is some fantastic art. I love it. Interior illustrations by Kevin Adkins and Jack Kaiser. Mirko Paganesi, Kim Van Deun, Andrei Vasilchenko. Anyway, and cartography by Cecil Howe. And then we got brushes by Obsidian Dawn. Okay, so those are all the credits. These are the people that put together this marvelous work, and my hat's off to them. Well, not right now because my hair's a mess, but you guys did an awesome job on this. Good work. So what do we have here? We have 4 chapters. Into the Wastes, the Frozen Waste, Denizens of the Wastes, and Kill Them All. Lots of wastes here. So let's get into it. So this talks about the first part basically talks about where this whole book is set, and it's set in a portion of the world that is, I believe there is a map in here somewhere. Anyway, it's in the southernmost part of the world, the Frozen Wastes. And here we go. I knew there was a map. So if you follow the map of rule, the majority of the campaign information that has been produced for this setting is in the Empire lands, which are north of the Blasted Lands here, and the Northern Reach, which is north of the Empire. So this is to the south of the Empire lands, and actually there's a region between this and the Empire. But you got the Blasted Lands here, and then you have the Blot Land. And then you have the Frozen Sea over here, and you have the Iron Bay, and then you got a mountain range, basically at the bottom of the world. So, excuse me. So so this is the setting, and this is about as far south as you can go, and so it is cold as fuck. So as you can imagine, there's not a whole lot going on here as far as civilization goes, but there is some. So the campaign world, once again, most of the action is to the north, but there is some interesting stuff going on down here. Now, this particular area, this particular region, the way it's set up is that it has, of course, humans. Humans are everywhere. They're like roaches. You can't get rid of them. They're in all corners of the world. But the people that kind of thrive down here are a race known as the Yoten. Now, the Yoten, they are a race of giants, and they're not as big as actual giants. Actual giants are size 3 or bigger, I believe, but Jotun are size 2. And so they're big people. They're humanoid. They look mostly human, but they do have like grayish, bluish skin, tend to not have a whole lot of hair, um, big, muscular, and the they this is the region, this is their homeland, but they are also raiders, and they are known to have raided other parts of the world at times, and they've come to regret that, and I'll get to that more here in a bit. But the first portion or the first section here is people of the ways, and it talks about the different people that make up this region. You got orcs, of course. You've got humans. You've got dwarves. Dwarves are another race that kind of thrive down here. And one could also say that they were born in this region as well. In fact, a lot of the dwarven um, histories talk about the dwarves actually being created from giants. But back in the day, back in in the beginning times, the dark gods created, or mostly Grimnir, which is like the big dark god, created the dwarves because the dwarves thought they were all that, and so Grimnir put them in their place and made them short, squatty, and ugly, kind of like me. And so the dwarves are said to have come from the south here. Now, I'll get more into the religion here in a little bit, but you'll find a lot of dwarves, and you'll find a spattering of other ancestries, but not much. So if I were to run a campaign, I would focus mostly on the dwarves and on the Yoten, because I believe those are the two civilizations that I wouldn't really say thrive, but they probably do the best. And then humans have a few villages here and there. All right, professions. It talks about professions, and then we get into religion. So the big religion down here are the dark gods. Now you can say that the other religions are kind of all over the place, but for the most part, the dark gods are the prominent or predominant religion here in the Blotland and in these wastes. So it talks about the religion here, talks about the dark gods and cosmology, but basically the dark gods are modeled after the Norse gods, with Grimnir being Odin, and then there are a few other gods that resemble other Norse gods, but Grimnir is like the top dog, god, dog, whatever. Anyway, so as it says here, you can learn more about the dark gods in the Uncertain Faith supplement, but it does give you kind of enough here. So it says here, most important, the Jotun religion does not perfectly match up with the religions and beliefs found in other lands. For example, the Jotun believe in the underworld and in hell, but they also believe they can escape the wheel of life and find a place among the gods in Valhalla. So Valhalla is a big thing down here because, that's a Norse thing. Valhalla and the dark gods exist because the Jotun believe in them. And as the worship of the dark gods spread into other lands, it might exist for those people as well. It is not a place of comfort and plenty. However, Valhalla is a realm of near constant violence where souls must fight each other for the pleasure of their dark master. Thus, it is no paradise. It is rather a lot like hell. It really depends on how you think about it, because like the Norse, they revel in battle. And so the thought of dying and going to an eternal battleground might be appealing to a lot of those folks, and certainly to the Jotun, who do enjoy their fair share of fighting and war-like activity. They might look at Valhalla as a sort of heaven. But anyway, let's see. It talks about the dark gods a lot in this section. Sometimes called the gods of blood and iron, includes dozens of deities. At its head sits Grimnir, the All-Father, king of the other gods. Yodan believed that Grimnir decided the fates of all living things when he created them, and so no one can forestall one's doom. So that's a big thing in the religion that the Yoten believe in, and that is that their destiny is already pre-written. And so all they're doing is playing out their part, to achieve that final vision that Grimnir has set for them. They already have a doom. They just need to get to it. And so they're pretty much fearless in battle because they already know that they're going to die. And that Grimnir has decided when they're going to die. So they might as well just kind of throw their all into battle, because unless Grimnir has decided this is the battle you're going to die in, they're pretty much, immortal until Grimnir decides they're not. So anyway, let's see what else does it say here. The signs of the dark gods are everywhere. Rune stones stabbed up by the snow and rune scrawled idols of the dark gods are scattered across the countryside, such that people moving through these lands get a real sense that the gods are both real and present. So runes are a big thing here. Of course, runes are very synonymous with dwarves, but the whole concept of runes as a medium is prominent here in this region. So I would play that up a lot. Every time you come into an area that has big stones, always have runes carved into them, and make it seem like there's, they're markings of something important, or directions somewhere, or warnings, or whatever. Runes play a big part. Priests called Gothi, or Gothai, preserve the teachings of the dark gods and exude a dread authority wherever they go. Gothai advise jarls and lead soldiers into battle, calling forth the magic from their bloodthirsty patrons to whip their allies into a frenzy. All right, so let's see what else here. Aside from the worship of dark gods, other religions might have influence in outlying settlements of the Waste. Giant Fall, described later in the book, has a few shrines to the older gods. Okay, so that's religion. Then we get into starting equipment. I'm not going to talk about this a whole lot. This is basically supplemental material from what is already provided in the core rulebook. New interesting things that are specific to or related to this part of the world. You could end up with a longboat with a dragon-headed prow. That's cool. That's definitely an interesting thing. Then it goes on to talk about the Yoten. Now, the Yoten are a player character race. I made the mistake of when I ran my very first Shadow of the Demon Lord campaign, which was Tales of the Demon Lord. I made the mistake of allowing my player characters, or my Claires, to choose any ancestry from any supplement that had been released up to that point. And this had been already released. And so one of my players decided he wanted to run a Yoten. I was like, okay, no big whoop. I'll make it work. Wow, that was a bad choice on my part. Simply because it was my first Shadow of the Demon Lord campaign, so I really didn't know what the hell I was doing. And the Yoten, as a player character race, they are badass. First of all, they're size 2. So any weapon they wield is a large size 2 weapon, which means that they're doing 2 dice of damage instead of just 1 die of damage. So they produce damage. Plus, the Yoten tend to be strong. You can see that their starting attributes, they start off with a strength of 13. Yeah. Now, everything else kind of sucks. I mean, their agility is 9, their intellect's 8, and their will is 10, but still, 13. Now, I kind of balanced it out a little bit in my situation by, having him having him be a Yoten out of his land, in a strange land. He was in the Northern Reach, and people didn't trust them because of the history the Yoten have with the Empire, which I'll get to in a little bit. And he couldn't buy any armor because there was no armor or weapons really that would fit him or that he could use. So he only had what he brought with him, and then anything else he needed would have to be custom made. So that's kind of how I balanced it out a little bit. The player didn't like it because every time they'd find loot, very little of it would be anything he could use because he's so fucking big. But anyway, that balance, because he was a badass. I mean, he got a lot of, he was strong to begin with, and then the Yoten are, they take half damage from cold. They have a novice path that just builds on their Yoten ancestry. So Yoten is their ancestry, but then their first level novice path is also Yoten, which just kind of builds on their giantness. They can catch their breath to heal. Level 1, level 2, they get a boon when they attack with a weapon. Level 4, they get Blood of the Giants. Whenever you heal damage, you make strength attack rolls and challenge rolls with 1 boon, like they need it. But yeah, they're kind of badasses. Titan Strike at level 5. Level 8, they get combat expertise. So yeah, they are pretty bad ass. So you can build your Yoten here. Yoten professions, they can be anything from a scholar of geography to a raider to a whaler to a scholar of astrology, magic, or occult. So they do have magic down here. You might want to customize the magic so that it's more rune based, or they keep their magic stored on tablets of ice or on icicles, or just kind of, if you're going to be down here in the Arctic, those things are practical. Not so much when you move up north, but you could your grimoire could totally be made out of slabs of ice. Why not? All right, Yodan Background. There's different backgrounds here. If you're creating your Yodan background, you can roll it randomly or you can choose one. And it talks about here they being size 2 creatures. As a Jotun, you are size 2 character, which makes you quite a bit larger than most other player characters. Size 2 characters have several benefits and drawbacks. Yeah. Summarized here. Your reach is 2 yards. So, yeah. This is basically any other race. You're kind of holding off. Your movement might be restricted by space. Size 1/2 and smaller creatures can freely move through your space. So yeah, there goes a human in between your legs. Oh, or not a human, but there goes a dwarf in between your legs. Size 1/2 smaller. Armor and weapons cost double the listed price. And your attacks with weapons that normally deal d6 or damage or more deal an extra d6 damage. Your attacks with weapons that normally deal less than 1/6 instead deal 1/6. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Then you got your master, your expert in your master paths. You can be a juggernaut, which makes you even more of a badass, as if you needed it. And then let's see, unstoppable. If you're immobilized or slowed, you can use an action or triggered action on your move to remove the affliction. So yeah, powerful fists. Your unarmed strikes deal a d6 extra damage. In addition, when you attack a target that's smaller than you with an unarmed strike or grab, you make the attack roll with 1 boon. It makes sense. All right, then you get my enemy, my weapon. You can use an action to grab a creature you're already grabbing. If that creature is smaller than you, you can swing the creature as if it was a weapon. I love that. I'm not sure it came into play a whole lot in my campaign, but that is awesome. Master Juggernaut. Pain don't hurt. While injured, you take half damage from weapons. Cryomancer is a thing. Seer is a thing. Scald. Not sure what Scald is. Scalds preserve the lore of their people in tale and poem. Most began their training by learning the old stories, committing them to memory, and recounting them to inspire their listeners. Others bind themselves to new heroes, chronicling their... So basically, these are bards. Then you got a warrior spirit, and then we have a section on magic that has new magic appropriate to this region. You got battle magic, curse spells, divination, forbidden spells, and primal spells, rune spells, of course, spiritualized spells, spiritualism spells, and water spells. I'm not going to read through all those because, spells are spells. They all do cool things. If you're interested enough, pick up the book. The Frozen Wastes. All right. This actually details the region itself. And it kind of talks about a little bit of the background of the history of the world. And actually, I'm not sure that's in this section or the next section, but you got the patchwork lands, then you got the blot lands, and then you have the or the blasted lands, and then you have the blot lands. So there are different segments, progressively getting colder and colder and worse and worse geographically. But the further south you go, the worse it gets and the colder it gets. So it talks about freezing death. It talks about how the cold affects your characters, which should be played up. I mean, we're talking about the equivalent of Antarctica down here. So you should be playing this up as a fucking cold place. Let me see. Talks about the different things: Ice Watch Isles, the Monastery of the Third Way, Iron Bay, Blotland. Okay, so the Patchwork Lands are right above the Blasted Lands. Then you got the Blasted Lands, and you got the Blotland, right? Talks about the murky origins of the Blotland. If ever there was a time when the Yoten did not claim the Blotland, they don't remember it. And much of the region's old architecture suggests that the slopes and valleys were occupied millennia ago. Ancient history, however, is tangled with myth, and it's hard to separate fact from fiction, especially when it comes to the origins of the Yoten or the part of the gods played in their creation. So basically what this is saying is that there's ruins and things that suggest that there was something here before the Yoten. So this has a very Lovecraftian feel to it and Mountains of Madness kind of vibe going. I think I like that concept, and I might actually run Mountains of Madness as a campaign in Shadow of the Demon Lord in this region. That would be pretty cool. Of course, you'd have to modify things to fit the campaign setting and the fantasy aspect of it, but alien horror, yeah, bring it. All right, talks about politics and society. A high king rules the Blotland with the consent of 10 lesser kings and queens who each claim one of the valleys that make up the nation. The current high king is an enormous and ambitious Jotun named Svarlgard. Probably pronouncing that all wrong, but Svarlgard sounds good. He hates the empire and plots to revenge his people for the wrongs done to them. He is not above forging alliances with other enemies of the empire, and he has recently hosted strange dignitaries from the Kingdom of Skulls, as well as a few minor lords and ladies from the Patchwork Lands. Some suspect he plans to resume the old war and strike the empire while it's at its weakest. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the history here. So the Yoten, they've always been raiders. They've always sent ships up to raid, the northern lands to bring back shit. So the Yoten are not a nice people. They're raiders. And, they have to be because they live in the fucking Arctic, okay? There's nothing down there. So, if they want nice shit, they have to go up and steal it. So, plus, they like to fight. And fighting other Jotun, is fine. But, what's more fun? Beating a guy your own size or beating a bunch of small ancestry creatures that live up north and, there's a lot more of them. You can sweep your club across the field and get like 20 of them, or you can hit one Yoten. So anyway, it's a good time to go raiding on Saturday night. After you got paid, you got a couple of bucks in your purse. Let's go raid, right? So they did a lot of raiding. Unfortunately, on one of the raids, they killed the emperor's son. And so the emperor of the time, I forget which one he was, but he decided enough's enough. It's on. And so the emperor essentially went to war against the Jotun. And so he took this huge force south and basically wiped the place clean. He really succeeded because of the superior military power that they had, plus the magic at their disposal. And the Jotun just couldn't, they couldn't defend against it. Plus, there was a lot more little people than there were Jotun. So the Jotun were defeated. They were driven back into the Blotland, and the Empire captured thousands of Jotun as prisoners. took him back to the Empire, and had his main warlock, also his name eludes me, but he's a famous dude. And this warlock casts this dark forbidden magic on these thousands of Jotun prisoners and transforms them into the first orcs. And he places the transformation also places um, a compulsion on these orcs to always obey the empire and fight for the empire. So they essentially created an army of orcs, the first army of orcs from these Jotun prisoners, and the Jotun were horrified by this. And so ever since then, they had it in for the empire. They really wanted revenge, but they also knew that the empire had a lot more resources and a lot more at their disposal. And now they had an army of orcs that is essentially a bred army of warriors. So they haven't retaliated, and in fact, some of the Yoden have actually tried to get along. But this particular orc or Jotun king, Svarlgard, he decided that now's the time, since the human emperor has been cast down and is now replaced by an orc emperor. Now's the time to attack. Or is that really his plan? Or perhaps he's trying to convince the orc that the orcs are related to the Jotun and they should combine their forces and conquer the world. I don't know. It could go either way. But the way it's written here, it sounds like he wants to attack the Empire. So you could go either way with that. I would think hard about Plan B, though. All right, so then we go on to important geographical features. The Dragon Fangs are the mountains that line the southern border of the Blotland. This is where my Mountains of Madness would take place. The Teeth, narrow strand, extends out from a range of weathered hills on the eastern edge of the Blotland. It is here in the area called the Teeth that the Jotun shipwrights construct the longships that sail across the Iron Bay and beyond. So you're going to find shipmaking fields there. Vale of Sorrows, the largest valley in the Blotland, lies between two lines of low hills that extend out from the Fangs for about 20 miles. Coniferous, good word, forest covers the Vale of Sorrows, and from the valley floor, one can spot the sharp-peaked roofs of the Jotun homes along the slopes on either side. Pools of clear water fed by snowmelt during the brief summer season teem with fish, and the whole valley is thick with elk, deer, foxes, and other wildlife. So if there's a nice place to live, Vale of Sorrows might be it. Then you got the Vale of Surtur. Surtur, that sounds familiar. A valley on the eastern edge of the nation takes its name from the pools of mineral-rich and bubbling waters found here. Weird rock formations and a fringe of ice higher up on the slopes give the Vale of Surtur a strange and otherworldly appearance. So this could be a place where there are ancient ruins that you might want to sprinkle in as places for adventures. But it also has minerals, so this would be a good place for people to go to mine, and it says here it's well suited for farming as well. Many human slaves live their lives toiling here, so it looks like there are some settlements here. But based on how it sounds, there could also be some cool shit. So let's see here. Notable sites: Giant Fall, the largest settlement in the Blotland. Pillars of Entramar, far from the inhabited lands, in the foothills climbing up to the Dragon Fangs, stand a pair of curious pillars, about 2 yards apart, made from petrified wood. They depict 8 demonic visages, stacked on top of one another. The Scalds claim that these pillars open a doorway to another land once every 8 centuries or so. No one remembers what happened when the doorway last opened, or even if it has ever opened before. But according to the Blotlanders' reckoning of time, the time may be at hand. Hint, hint, adventure seed? Maybe. Sea Watch. This is a tower that's on a small island just off the coast of the Blotland. Stormguard, an enormous stone fortress. I believe it's got Let's see, it's got a bunch of Yoten, the mightiest of all Yoten citadels that has fallen only once. All right, so you got hidden kingdoms. So yeah, the Fae are everywhere, so of course they're going to be down here. And so the Fae are also the dark gods, maybe? Well, they've got some hidden kingdoms down here. So you've got Svartalheim. And a lot of this, again, sounds a lot like Norse mythology. So you got Svartalheim, Svartalfheim. They don't make it easy. Exists inside an enormous cavern, several hundred miles wide in all directions. The ceiling bristles with mammoth stalactites, while the floor is a veritable maze of columns and stalagmites. Pools of water glow, filling the gallery with strange moving shadows. It's a magical place. Alrighty, so fungal gardens. Great Fae named Hel rules over Svartalfheim. Believed to be the estranged sister of Diabolus and Thanatos, known as Father Death, she has no ties to mortals and accepts no worshippers. She lives in a fantastical palace carved into the largest stalactite that hangs from the center of the roof, and whose ethereal beauty can sometimes be spied upon through the windows of lavender glass set all around it. It's thought that the souls of the Yoten who were cowardly or dishonorable in life are given to hell instead of finding a place in the underworld. These souls are then sent to Diabolus to meet the Hell Tithe, but not before Hell herself has had a chance to deliver her own cruel torments. Then you got Valhalla. Of course, we all know what Valhalla is. The afterlife sought by all Yoten. You can only get to it by traveling across the Bifrost, the Rainbow Bridge, sometimes glimpsed above the dragon fangs and always guarded by the grim and immovable Tyr of the One Hand. The Gothai describe Valhalla as a place of wonders where all things are possible and where the Einherjar, I have no idea how to pronounce that, fight on the fields of valor each day to earn their place at Grimnir's table and the honor of battling for the fate of the world in its final days. So basically, you fight all day, then you get drunk and eat to your belly bursts all night, rinse and repeat. So, doesn't sound like a bad way to spend eternity. Beyond the dragon fangs. Although the Jotun believe the dragon fangs to be the edge of the world, there must be something beyond them, most likely more mountains, snow, and ice. Legends tell of fabled cities, steaming jungles, and even portals to other worlds. Any or none of these stories could be true. So, this is where the Mountains of Madness sounds like it could be cool. You could also go with the Hollow World setting, or the Savage Land setting from the Marvel Comics, where you got dinosaurs, kind of like a hidden, forgotten land of dinosaurs. Lots of cool shit could be beyond the Dragon Fangs. You could really build that up. Secret of the Wastes. I forget what's in this section here. Oh, just more description. So you've got, a special features of the Frozen Waste table. You can find human, orc, dwarf, or animal frozen solid. You could find a footprint left by a roaming mountain giant. Deep pit about 3 yards in diameter from which issues sulfurous smoke. Different adventure ideas are down here. Spark your imagination. You got hue and clamor for starting. Quest for justice for novice. So if you want to build a campaign, it gives you a guide to do that. Stirrings of the ancient and dark omens. So it talks about different shadows of the demon lord that would be appropriate for this region. Demonic incursion, dreams of the dead god, or winter's grasp. I'm not sure I'd go with any of those. I'm not really sure what shadow of the demon lord I would have down here. Maybe pull in one from Elder Evils, the Father Limic one. Another thing that you could do here in this region is you could take the Dungeons and Dragons adventure, the Icewind Dale Rime of the Frost Maiden, and you could port that into this setting fairly easily, I think. And probably make it better, because I think that Shadow of the Demon Lord is is probably a better game system to run an adventure like that. From what I've read of the Ice One, I'm looking over here because the book is sitting right there. I have the book. I've never run it. But I've heard a lot about it. Anyway, relics from the Frozen Waste. You got the belt of the Titan, Brisingamen. I don't even know. The End Stone, No Thung, Resounding Horn. All of these sound cool. I forget what they do. I'm not going to read through them though. Then you got, what is this? You got some big ass giant. And that leads us right into the Bestiary section. So you've got different animals that exist down here, great ravens, winged horses. I don't know what that is. Then you have different humanoids. You got the dwarves, which, what is this? They called them Trow. Some dwarves remained in the frozen wastes even after Grimnir's curse, too fearful to leave the lands of their birth. Great shame for what they had done, and the curse had transformed them, instilled in them fear of the dark gods, a feeling that turning their backs on Grimnir would only anger him further. Rather than join their fellows on the journey north, they remained in the wastes and strove to make amends for their actions. So basically, ice dwarves, called the Trow. Then we have Yoten, if you want to use them as villains. They're statted out here. Sons of Winter. These are followers of Old Man Winter that believe their god lives somewhere in the frozen waste. So these are basically humans, human tribes that have adapted to the cold. Demons. Of course, you got to have demons. It's the Shadow of the Demon Lord, right? Then you got different fairies. Fossagrim. That's this guy. I read about Fossagrim a while back. I forget exactly what he does, but he's kind of a cool fairy. So you might want to read through this and use him in one of your adventures. I wish I could remember. I don't want to read through this on the video because that's just me reading, and you can do that yourself. But I do recall this is a pretty cool monster. Then you got an Ice Genie. That looks just badass. Giants and ogres. You got to have. I mean, if you got Yoten, they got to fight giants because what's a challenge to a Yoten? This is something bigger. So that would be a giant. So you got mountain giants. They're fucking big and fucking difficult. Difficulty of 1,000. Size 20. Okay. All right. Then you got monsters. So monsters. The myth down here is that monsters were created. That all life actually was created from a magical substance called Aetir or Etir. This is an ichor that is said to be the venom that dripped from the fangs of the world serpent, a titanic snake that encircles the world and is thought to be the world itself or a metaphor for immortal existence. Pools of Aetir still lie deep underground. The substance can no longer spawn all sorts of life. However, the shadow from the void as it spreads across Earth has tainted it so that only monsters pull free from the viscid liquid. So the pools of Aetir creates monsters. It's a poison, but it's got an alluring aroma, so it smells nice, makes you want to drink it, then it poisons you. And it spawns monsters, so it's good stuff. If you're near a pool of Aetir, then it can spawn from this table. Nasty stuff. And you can randomize what type of form. Then we get into the Game of Thrones section of this this region. You can't have an Arctic region without having frozen undead. So that's where we have cold ones. Now these guys aren't actually undead; they're monsters, but they are essentially the dudes from Game of Thrones. So they got even the pale blue light emanating from their eyes. So cold ones, that could be the imminent threat coming from these regions. Then you've got ice dragons, cold dragons, white dragons, whatever you want to call them. Dragons are down here. They live in the dragon fangs, and of course, dragons are always trouble in any part of the world. You have the ancient dragon written up here. Then you have the Fenrir. On the slopes of the mountains can be found a breed of monstrous wolf called the Fenrir. So Fenrir kind of take on the Fenris from the Norse mythology, which of course is the giant wolf. And so that's what we have here. There's a size 4 wolf, and they are pretty badass. We also got a kraken that you can release. And you have a Lindorm, which is kind of like an ice worm. I believe that's what's on the cover of the book. Maybe not. I think it's a dragon on the cover of the book. Anyway, here's a Lindorm. Or this might be a white worm. So Lindorm is actually... No, Lindorm, I'm sorry, my bad. Lindorm is a sea serpent. So this would be a serpent that would attack the longships. So a sea monster, size 12, difficulty 250. Could be trouble when you're on a boat. Then you got the white worm. So these are the giant worms that exist in the Arctic, and size 5. If you're about to go see Dune when it comes out and you're inspired by the giant worms, then run a campaign in an opposite setting, which is a cold setting, and use the white worm instead, just to kind of change it up a bit. Anyway, you got the wyverns. And then you got undead and spirits. So you have Draugr, Ironjar, Valkyries, trolls, and then we get to the adventure at the end of the book. So the adventure at the end of the book, I have not read through it once a while back. It's a master tier adventure. So this is how you could cap it off, or this could be one of the adventures in your master tier. And you have 7th, 8th, and 9th, and 10th levels to fill up. This could be like 7th level. But you get to fight a dragon, and you get to fight some trolls and some other shit. So Kill Them All is a setting appropriate master tier. And I'm glad they made it a master tier, because everything down here is just so powerful that, making it something less than a master tier, I think would be, a wasted opportunity. So you got a master tier adventure here. And this section right here I love, because it starts off with the characters being in a longhouse and drinking, and it details the Jotun Boasts. So Jotun have this quality that they want to outdo each other in their boasts. This probably has Norse roots as well. But here's a table of boasts. In case you can't think of one ridiculous enough yourself, you can pull one from this table. So one of the, a lot of these are just fantastic, but let me just read a couple. So the first one is, I once ate a herd of oxen in one sitting. Yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. My left nut is bigger than your head and would take more hands than are in this room to heft my manhood. Impressive. Might be a little bit difficult to get around, but impressive. A Valkyrie came for me once. I told her, not yet. Yeah, so the Valkyrie, they're like the death spirits. They come for you when you're dead. This dude said, not yet. Not in my house. So, yeah, these are just great boasts. You can always come up with your own, but if you're going to be a Jotun, you definitely have to come up with some boasts to tell when you're drinking. Jotuns love to brawl, so if you're getting together to drink, there's going to be a fight. Local color. This is just some things that you can do to kind of spice up your adventure with some appropriate things to interject into the game, like a surly drunk with piss poor attitude, a typical boastful, competent member of the community. These can be your NPCs that you have to interact with. All right. So I wish I could really go into detail on this adventure. I have not read it for a while, but I do know that it starts off with a dragon attack, as it just stated here, and then it goes into some other some other things. But the dragon attack is just kind of a way to get the adventure rolling, but the actual adventure itself goes beyond just the dragon itself. So I would recommend running this as part of your master tier adventures, unless of course you've got a full campaign planned out, like the Mountains of Madness. And but at any rate, here you go. You got a pre-written adventure ready and waiting for you to run. All right, so that is A Glorious Death. I love the supplement. I want to run a campaign in this supplement, and in this region. Just haven't gotten to it, and shame on me because I want to do it, but I will get to it at some point in the future. So I highly recommend it if you're going to be running a campaign that, you want to run a campaign in a cold region. I also recommend it if you want to do the Rime of the Frost Maiden in Shadow of the Demon Lord. So this would be a must to pick up to replace a lot of the stuff that you'll inevitably need to replace that are D&D centric and not Shadow of the Demon Lord centric, because you want to mesh the two together. But at any rate, this is a great supplement. I highly recommend it. It's to be truthful, if you're never going to go this far south, you probably don't need it. But it's a great read. If for no other reason, just to open up the Yoten for a potential player character race. If you want to be a generous DM and let some traveling Yoten be run by some of your players. But it's just got some great stuff in it, so I would highly recommend it. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this video. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like me on YouTube. Leave a comment if you want to comment and make your own comments on this particular supplement and your experiences with it. And with that, I will let you go. Hope you have some awesome gaming, and I will catch you on the next video.